Have you read Building a StoryBrand by Donald Miller and wondered, this is great, but what do I actually do with it? Or did you start hammering out your own brand script and thought, is this any good? I don't have anyone to compare this to. Well, you're not alone. I've personally spoken to a lot of business owners and marketers who've read the StoryBrand book only to put it back on the shelf because they're overwhelmed with the process of developing their own brand script and taking the next step to putting this knowledge into action. Here at Business Builders, we've helped hundreds of companies take the StoryBrand framework from idea to implementation. And in this video, we're going to help you nail the first step, your brand script, so you can use StoryBrand to clarify your message and grow your business. To help you develop your own brand script, we're going to share the exact questions you can use as you fill in the 7 parts of your own brand script. Examples from our clients' brand scripts that you can learn from, a fillable template you can use to put this knowledge into action right away, and a consolidated list of 8 do's and don'ts we've compiled after helping hundreds of companies develop their brand scripts through our marketing blueprint process here at Business Builders. First, let's set the stage. If you've read the book, Building a StoryBrand, then you'll recognize the brand script as that 7-part framework that helps you clarify your message by defining the following elements of the story your business is telling. A character who has a problem and meets a guide, who gives them a plan and calls them to action that results in success and helps them avoid failure. When you define each of these elements, your marketing starts to fall into place. And while knowing the list is great, I want to give you some very specific questions you can use, especially if you download that fillable PDF brand script I mentioned earlier. Let's take them in order. Number 1, your character. What do they want? Ask yourself, what do your customers want as it relates to your product or service? Here, you want to make sure you dig deeper after you jot down some initial answers. Odds are there are deeper desires hidden a layer or two further down than you initially thought. Number 2, the problem. This section can actually have 4 elements for you to flesh out. Let's cover those in order. The villain, the external problem, an internal problem, and a philosophical problem. More on an example of that here in just a minute. All right, number 1, the villain. Ask yourself, is there a root cause of your customer's problems? Can you personify that root cause as a villain that you're both rallying against? What is the villain in your customer story? When I worked at a SaaS company called Teamwork.com, we leaned into a particular villain our customers were dealing with. You see, our main users of the software were marketing agencies who were dealing with demanding and hard to manage clients. So we personified their problem with a villain, simply known as the client. We created satirical videos portraying him like a supervillain from a comic book series. If you want to see this example, just Google The Client by Teamwork.com and you should be able to find it, by the way. And while you don't have to go to those links in this section, it is worth asking yourself, what does your character see standing between them and what they want from element number 1? All right, number 2, next you want to think about your character's external problem. Here you want to ask, what is a problem your customers deal with as it relates to your product or service? Number 3, after that, you want to go one layer deeper and use this question to identify the internal problem they're facing. How is the villain making your customers feel? Don't discount the very specific emotional words that you may put into this section as you're filling it out by hand or typing it in. They can drive a lot of your marketing copy and even advertising ideas in the future, because more often than not, people make decisions based on emotion and then back it up with logic. Answering this question will help you speak to your potential customers' emotions in a very powerful way. All right, finally, number 4 in this section is the philosophical problem. Ask yourself, why is it just plain wrong for your customers to be burdened by this problem? To share an example, and this one actually comes from the nonprofit world, it's just too great an example not to share though, of identifying and communicating a philosophical problem in your company's brand scripts. You see, Hunger Fight, a Business Builders client who's fighting to end hunger and illiteracy for local children across Florida and Georgia, they developed this language in this section of their brand script with a philosophical problem that reads like this. It's just plain wrong that in the richest country in the world, we can't provide food to our children. No child should ever have to go hungry. All right, who couldn't agree with that line? See how well that works to connect on an emotional level about a philosophical problem? By the way, you know that fillable template I mentioned earlier? You can go ahead and download it with the link in the description below this video and follow along with the rest of the video if you want. Go ahead, you can pause it. I'll wait a second. All right, you ready? Let's keep going. On to the third element of your brand script, the guide. We know you've been eager to talk about your company and your truly amazing product. I'm sure it is. Now it's time, but it is important to focus on the two things your potential customers care about most when it relates to you as the guide: empathy and authority. On the first, ask yourself, what brief statement can you make that expresses empathy and understanding? How can you show your potential customers that you understand their problem? On the latter, you want to ask, how can you demonstrate the fact that you've solved problems for customers just like them many times before? All right, if you're still with me, do you remember part 4 of the brand script? That's right, it's the plan. Here are the two aspects of the plan that you want to flesh out as you're developing the brand script with your team. The first part is the process. What are the 3 or 4 steps your customers can take that would lead them to a sale? Or how could you list the steps they would use your product after buying it? Even if it's more complicated than that, which I'm sure you're saying, Logan, it is. There's more to it than that. I promise you, it's possible to boil it down into an easy to follow process. Just look at how we do this at Business Builders. There are a lot of moving pieces to our client relationships. New clients are looking to refine their messaging, build a new website, produce video content, develop a marketing plan, distribute content on social media and other channels. And while we do all of those things for a lot of different clients, we can boil our process down to 3 simple steps: plan, produce, and promote. It goes something like this when we communicate it. First, we plan your messaging and marketing strategy with a marketing blueprint. Next, we help you produce assets, usually starting with a website and brand video, to bring your messaging to life. Then we execute a plan to promote that content to the right people so that you can get attention, acquire customers, and grow your business. Plan, produce, promote. See how even a complex service-based business like ours can use this part of the brand script to simplify things for potential customers. All right, I did say there were 2 parts to the plan, the process, and now the agreement. Here, you want to list the agreements you can make with your customers upfront to alleviate their fears of doing business with you. Remember that part about emotional decision-making I mentioned earlier? This is going to help you here. This could be a money-back guarantee or a clear expectation of typical timelines for project execution in a service-based business. All right, next up, we are going to cover more on this in future videos in this series, but let's start with the basics on the next section, the call to action. It's important to identify both direct and transitional calls to action in your brand script. For the direct call to action, here's what you want to ask. What's the one thing you want people to do to start the process of doing business with you? Get very clear in answering this question. All right, on the transitional call to action, for those who are not ready for that level of commitment with the direct call to action or CTA, what transitional calls can you use to on-ramp customers or provide value in the meantime? More on this in a future video all about lead generators, what they are, and how to use them. For the 6th part of the brand script, success, here's what you want to do. List the positive changes your customers will experience if they use your product or service. On the flip side, part 7, failure, that you're going to help them avoid, you want to list the negative consequences your customers will experience if they don't use your product or service. All right, now that you know these questions to ask as you try to fill in the 7 parts of your own brand script, let's get to that list of 8 common pitfalls to avoid. First, we've got some don'ts. Don't make your company the hero. As you talk about the character, you're focused on your potential customers. Make them the hero of the story. After all, they're already that in their own minds. For example, you won't want to use a phrase like, "Our state-of-the-art software solves IT challenges." That's positioning your product as the hero. Instead, you can communicate the same thing in a different way, maybe like, "Empower your IT team to solve challenges fast with our intuitive software." Number 2, don't talk about yourself too much. Keep your focus on the customer story. Resist the urge to lead with things like how long you've been in business or how many awards you've won. While establishing credibility is important, you need to earn the right by making it about them first. Spend enough time on the character and the problem before you get to the guide in your own brand script. Number 3, and this is so important, don't get hung up on the exact wording here just yet. The brand script is an internal tool first. You want to focus on progress over perfection because you can refine the words that you use over time. Don't let the pursuit of perfection paralyze you from taking action. In the next video in this series, we'll show you the next elements beyond the brand script where you are going to refine and get very meticulous about the words that you use. All right, number 4 on our list of don'ts. Don't try to fit everything into one brand script. You want to focus on one character with one problem. Multiple characters or problems make bad stories. Just like when a movie or streaming series opens up too many plot lines that it's too hard to follow, you can do the same by trying to put too much into one brand script. So here's a pro tip. It is okay to have multiple brand scripts for your business. You could have one for the company as a whole, and then others for each product or division within the company. Again, trying to put too much into a single brand script never ends well. Trust me, we've seen it so many times. All right, number 5 on our list, don't use insider jargon. And this advice can be harder to follow than you actually think. I can't tell you how many of our clients have suffered from the curse of knowledge. We all do, if we're being honest. This happens when you get so used to the way that you talk about your company and your product or service that you get comfortable using words that outsiders don't even know. Every time you do that, you make your message harder to understand. And remember, as we say with StoryBrand, if you confuse, you lose. All right, that's our list of don'ts. Let's get on to some of the things that you do want to do to make the process of developing your brand script and implementing StoryBrand for your business a whole lot easier. Number 1 on this list, you do want to involve key stakeholders in the development of the brand script. Get perspectives from all around the business and maybe even ask some outsiders. At the same time, it's really, really important that only those key stakeholders, those with veto power who could make or break a decision on what goes in or out of your brand script, they should be the ones and the only ones in the room as you actually hammer out your brand script internally or with an outside partner like a StoryBrand certified agency. You don't want to do marketing by committee and have 20 or more people in the room as you're trying to hammer out your brand script. You'll end up marketing by committee and ending up with terrible results that no one's going to like this. All right, number 2 on our list of do's, you do want to roll out your brand script to your entire team, not just leadership, so that everyone is aligned once you have refined your brand script. Every single customer-facing employee, especially, should be crystal clear on how to talk about what you do and the value you provide using the brand script as the framework. You want to make it the centerpiece of your company kickoff and quarterly all-hands meetings, for instance. Rounding out number 3 on our list, you do want to start to use the language of your brand script in all of your marketing channels right away. Now, that doesn't mean you need to use all of your brand script in all of your marketing channels. Did you catch that? Use your brand script in all of your marketing channels, but not all of your brand script in all of your marketing channels. What we mean by that can be compared to chords on a guitar. You can use multiple chords to play a great song, but you're not using them all the time, and you're not using every one in every song. So as you look at areas to use your brand script, like your website, your sales emails, your newsletter, even your invoices and email signature, plus social media content. While you want to be consistent and repetition is key, you don't want to try and cram every element of your brand script into every piece of content. As you develop your brand script, remember, it is a living document. It's okay to refine it over time as your business evolves and the market shifts over time. For instance, if there are changes in the market or your buyer persona changes and you're selling to a different individual or a different segment of the market, it's probably time to revisit your brand script or develop a new one. All right, are you ready to create your own? If you haven't already, you can download the free fillable template to get started. The link is in the description down below this video. In the next video, we'll show you how to turn your brand script into a powerful one-liner and explanatory paragraph you can use everywhere. Because a common mistake we see with the brand script is thinking that you need to now use the entire thing everywhere. Anytime someone asks you, what does your business do? These next two elements, the one-liner and explanatory paragraph that we're going to unpack in the next video, will help you answer that question more clearly and succinctly than ever before, which is what you need if you want to finally use the StoryBrand framework to gain attention and acquire customers. Check out that next video right here.